see it all the time.
I think I
If
saw
you let me
that
take
too,
your car,
his wife, yeah.
and I drive it, and I don't know it's unregistered, uninsured,
They've already voted on
I
the
still
whole
get
thing.
caught. I still get charged.
They've already
They
voted
still
on the
charge
whole
me.
thing.
You don't even have to know, you're
Yeah.
just in the car
Still,
driving.
they're waiting for one
They
ballot.
charge everyone all the time on that. But it's still bogus.
That
You know,
Morgan,
they still
Mike
charge you.
Ward,
They'll dismiss it all money,
I have about 15 altogether.
and then they can also get you too.
Why,
They could have they could have charged and sent them a summons for allowing somebody to
I
drive
asked
an
him, I
unregistered
nominated
car.
him.
Put it in
Yeah,
both
I'd like to
ways.
nominate you for one of your football games while you game, which your games.
Listen,
Your games.
You buy me a drink next
Baseball
time we
games.
go out.
I'm having a hard time. Well, the other part of it,
Exactly.
the Salem Police Department
Wow.
really would be
He refused. He said, no, I don't want to be in the Hall of Fame without my whole team. I want the whole team. So I
other
told
side
him,
of that is also
Conley, Dave and Thomas, any possible the whole
But,
team.
again, I see
Swamp
him
could
do it
be
win
the
all
whole
the
team.
time.
They wouldn't win too.
Josh, I got a text from Zach
They may have done
yesterday that
I mean, I
I'm
can show you,
having
I can play
twins.
for
See you in 5 years.
person driving unregistered, uninsured, not their car. How do they know? That's not an excuse. I mean, it's something like for a taxi.
One of my good friends sent me a text like yesterday, and I just looked at the phone. He sent it to like a group of us, like 5 or 6 of us, and the text said like, "I'm having twins. See you in 5 years."
Did he buy a big enough house? Is that house?
You know, that's a good point. That's a good point. And he has a 2-year-old.
Let's see what we got.
Yeah, I know.
Get this out of here so we can go home.
Why would you want to do that? You don't want to stay here?
Kidding me, I got a lot of work I gotta do. I got a assault and murder case on tomorrow.
And you're defending? You have to know Ray Busso.
Yeah, you know what? When I started, I rented from Ray, right from the beginning. My office was in Ray's office. People either love Ray or they hate Ray. I respect Ray, because if you go in there, if you have a question, you know, you think it's a low question, he won't let you leave until you answer it.
I almost had, I was looking for
Really
a
respect him.
backup.
Because when I was here, I
Mayor,
had no idea what
look back from the other side, I almost had one. The
sitting
boy
down
had
and
him,
explaining
but they
everything.
were
Even today,
away.
if I have a question, I can call him.
I actually
Audio Sunday.
Is he
Anyone
reinstated?
know, and you know anyone that would still have a low back?
Emails on this thing. I don't like the way it stacks them
Good
together.
life choices.
I know all about it.
Like Garrett
He went
Boy
to
said,
it.
I called
It's
him
like,
and said, threw all that stuff away.
This was well, one of them back there. It's like
I mean, when I saw her, she was always nice. I didn't
news
see
and
behind closed doors, but
sent
it was
And I called
dating
Nelson
now,
Dion when
so-
he got surgery with gallbladder or something.
He was talking to him. I was talking to him
I know Martha.
Sunday. He called me up about Salem Fire.
She was a little
I figured it out.
He has everything, so I figured he might have that.
Martha Giants. But, and that's all the kids are named, you know, Evan Busso Giants, hyphenated. I mean, I don't, this new person, I met her once. Point tape or anything, I'll stop at this.
What is this Community Preservation Commission? What's this?
That's the CPA ordinance that we,
This is what you worked on?
yeah, and we, the city solicitor, legal had some questions and went back, sent it back, and then it's coming back out with a couple more questions. I'm gonna take that first, I think. I'll take that.
Trash and CPA ordinance.
And the Reds changes?
The red are the changes.
You like it the way it's modified?
I have two quick questions. 3 quick questions.
CPA one, because the other ones are all together.
Yeah, how you doing? Good, I want to thank you. You did a wonderful job on the, rate and the first week. And then, just a hit. Yeah, they did. I was actually driving by. This way,
Well, does a member of this commission have to live in Salem?
Yeah, they have to be on a board.
What does it say that here?
In order to be on it, you gotta be on the board.
Does it say you gotta be a member, live in Salem? I'll ask him.
We can make changes. There's too much stuff in the committee. Ask her.
Thank you. There's too much stuff.
That's why I'm trying to get them all up. That's why we're meeting next week.
It's a democracy still, right? We haven't heard from the Board of Health yet.
Email, like, they can't even send us requests. They don't have a quorum.
That's right. That's how bad it is. That's awful. That's terrible. Now the mayor says, they don't have a quorum, Tom. They do it. Then there's no quorum. They have to cancel them all the time.
I got a nail. I'm supposed to be over there at 7 o'clock.
says she'll appoint people. That's what the paper said. She says, you gotta appoint people. Or we'll tell the cities, I think there's a law that says if she does a weekend. I'll tell the city, I'm gonna see the city solicitor Thursday, I'll tell her about it. That's like budget, you know, the mayor doesn't appropriate budget, we can. What's Tom Dalton doing here?
This televised?
Ready?
I didn't realize until I saw the green lights.
Take a shower. This on?
I was gonna say something.
Ready? It's on TV.
Sure.
Ready?
I'm ready.
The City Council Committee of the Whole met in council chambers on Tuesday, March 19, 2013, at 6:30 PM for the purpose of discussing the matters listed below. Notice of this meeting was posted on March 15, 2013, at 6:30 PM. This meeting is being recorded. Currently absent are Councilors Prevey and Legault. Present, we have the city solicitor, the purchasing agent, Julie Rose, and the engineer, David Knowlton. And we have 5 things on the committee. Council Order 136, ordinance amendment relative to solid waste. 137, 5-year contract for solid waste and recycle with Northside Carting. 138, contract for the acceptance and processing of recyclables with Newark Group. 139, 5-year contract for the acceptance and disposal of solid waste with Covanta Associate. And number 653 and 151A, the CPA ordinance. And I want to take the CPA ordinance up first, since the other ones are all kind of related. And the CPA ordinance, we had it for first passage, and Councilor Siegel had some more questions, so we brought it back into committee and sent it over to the city solicitor review. She made some changes. There should be an updated ordinance on your desk. And I don't know, Council Siegel, do you want to start, or do you want the city solicitor to say what changes have been made, or?
Sure, if she wants. That's fine.
Okay, based on the email received from Council Siegel, I made some changes and go through them. First one is section 2-1011. For purposes of clarification, I just wanted to make sure the housing authority, that was the housing authority board. So when we mentioned in subsequent sections, board or commission, it includes all of those boards and commissions, including the housing authority. So I made that change in number 5. And then added in confirmation by the majority board of the city council, the members that were appointed by the mayor. In the subsequent paragraph, there are no committees that are making appointments, so I struck the word committee and inserted the word mayor and in 2 places in that paragraph. And then added the word, as Council Siegel's suggestion, that it be 45 days from the first day that the vacancy is known. So added that section. And then added another paragraph that's all in red that basically says that a member of the committee who is appointed by a board or commission has to be in good standing, and good standing means that that person's appointment hasn't lapsed, that he or she has been reappointed by the mayor and the city council. And it describes what happens if that person has not been reappointed, that they will be ineligible to vote on matters that come before the committee until they're back in good standing or someone else is put on the committee. In that subsequent paragraph, also made some clarifications to cut out the word committee and added another few sentences at the end. It talks about if the mayor, if there's a board that fails to designate someone to be on the committee, that the mayor shall act, and then if the mayor doesn't do it within a requisite period of time, that the city council shall do that, so that it just makes sure that there are persons on the committee who are active, who are in good standing, in that any reappointment processes happen in a timely manner. Going next to section 2013, Council Seeger suggested that, had some concern with the rules and regulations section. I don't know that it's necessary that this section be in there. The committee is going to have to set up some rules, that could be informal rules, about when they meet, how many times they meet, those types of things. You know, most boards don't have an ordinance section that states that they're gonna make rules and regulations of how they do it. So if there's concern with having that there, it can certainly be deleted. There was a redundant section, section 2-2016, and based on Council Siegel's recommendation, I struck that. And I think I got all the changes that you suggested. I hope I did.
There were
Council
two,
Siegel?
oh, I'm sorry, there were three, you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, to the city solicitor. There were two minor changes, which I don't know if we really need them. It was just one, if the mayor doesn't put somebody in within 45 days, I suggested that if her time lapses, maybe the city council would then choose, because we don't have that anywhere in here.
I think I added that,
Just run
on the bottom of
The bottom of
10-11, the very last sentence, I think.
Yep.
Is that okay?
I don't want to be nitpicky here, but the way I read that, it reads, in case I kind of read that if a board or commission fails to choose one in 45 days, then the mayor gets to choose one. Then if the mayor doesn't choose one, the city council, so maybe, because that's only on a mayor appoints following the commission or board's failure to do so.
Right.
Ours would be also in the event the mayor fails to appoint one, because the mayor's office, he or she, whoever it may be at the time, also gets to pick two people.
Oh, okay, right. Okay,
It's
on
separate.
that, okay, okay. Okay, I follow you.
Their recommendation, like to,
My recommendation would to add that language in, if on the mayor's two picks, if the mayor, whoever it may be at the time, fails to choose within 45 days, then it comes to the city council to pick.
you all done?
I just had one more, but I throw this out to the members of the committee. We don't have anything that says, we're supposed to pick within 45 days also, and there's no language that in there, if we don't pick, where does that go? Does it stay at the committee? And I'd leave that up to the members of the council to decide that. There's just no language on it. I would assume we would pick within 45 days, but you never know. You know, we have one meeting in the summer, you know, there might be time in between, we don't get to choose. So I just throw that to the committee.
Council Prevey?
Thank you, Mr. President. May I suggest then that if the council, whether we're in recess or we fail to do after 45 days, then maybe it'd be something that the mayor then can appoint someone, whether we want to put it in, we allow the mayor to appoint someone temporarily for a period of time until the council, if you want to call it like a recess appointment or something like that, if there ends up being a difficulty with the council for whatever ends up being either practical reasons, the council can't appoint someone, or whether it's because we can't decide. So,
I think that's fair.
I think that would be fair, because if we want some responsibility in trying to appoint people, then we obviously have to make an effort to do that, and if not, then obviously the mayor should be in a position to appoint someone. That's my thought.
One of those city
Councilor-
manuals.
Counselor O'Keefe, did you have a question?
I was asking the city. Well, what council is, yeah, the yellow one. You got one? Oh, that's good enough. I can ask a question to you, the city solicitor? Okay, that's better. All right, current one. I don't know why we don't have in here that somebody has to, he or she has to live in Salem. Is that understood, any board or commission that we have in the city, that you, to serve on a commission, you have to be a resident of Salem?
I've never seen it in the council.
I know we've had some boards that have people that don't live in Salem that are on the boards, that don't live in Salem. So, I think in here there ought to be something, he or she should be a resident in good standing in Salem. It's come up, Councilor Levy was bringing up all the time, I mean, people, you know, where do you live? You move out, oh, I gotta get off the Board of Appeal. Oh, no, nothing that says you have to get off the Board of Appeal. I think that's wrong. They move out of Salem, they don't like Salem anymore, they shouldn't be deciding what Salem does. My thoughts, I don't know what my colleagues think. But
Make a recommendation to add that to this language?
yes, the council, whatever the council wishes, that he or she live in the city while she serves on this board, or any board, the Conservation Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually agree with Councilor O'Keefe on that, especially with, I mean, there's certain boards, when you look at kind of what they do, I can see where it's not a major deal to have someone from the city, but there are certain boards that have such a major impact on things that go on in the city. I think it's important to have people who actually live in the city, are invested in the city, and are gonna be part of that. And I think this is one commission, I think that rises to that level where someone from the city should be on, you know, that would be a residency requirement.
Here's our practice, that it's very painful, that if you do move out of the city, that you resign, and then another Salem resident is appointed. There are other committees, for example, that by the nature of the ordinance, for example, cable television systems, says that the city solicitor shall be, you know, the city solicitor may not be, because of the position, they're part of the committee. So I'll add that in as a number 8.
Yeah.
Satisfying? Thank you, Councilor Reeve and Councilor O'Keefe. Any further questions?
Yes, and another one.
Councilor O'Keefe?
Unless my colleagues have a question. Item number 4, membership in terms. One member of the Park and Recreation Commission. I've had this numerous discussion with the city solicitor before. Isn't it the park, recreation, and community development? I mean, it's like public services, it's called public works. It should be public works, it should be public.
When we changed the ordinance, we changed the name of the department. I do not believe we changed the name of the commission.
But the ordinance was changed, wasn't it, when we created this?
The name of the department and
Then this has changed.
I don't believe we ever changed the name of the commission. I'll look that up. I don't believe we did.
Make it consistent, but
Another should be consistent.
Right.
I think really, personally, we should go back to the Department of Public Works and Public Services. I think that's crazy. I keep calling it Public Works. Everybody does. Public Services, what the hell's that?
any further questions?
Oh, that's wonderful.
Okay. Any further questions on the CPA ordinance? Anyone want to make a recommendation that Councilor McCarthy?
I just have one last question.
Yeah.
With regards to the highlighted area on the last page, the one that's in parentheses, are we including that language or are we deleting?
Section 2016?
2013, the one that's in parentheses, as a matter of course.
Well, that's a suggestion of you're either deleting that section in its entirety or leaving it.
Delete it.
Delete it, so we're deleting that entire section.
Okay. No, because it wasn't hashed out like the rest of them, so I was just curious.
Right.
My recommendation moved, Mr. President? I would move that the matter be referred out of committee with the recommended changes to the full council for approval.
Second.
Matter be moved out of committee with the recommendations, seconded by Councilor O'Keefe. Further comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Next matter. And for the record, Councilor Prevey had joined us a while ago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Take up the council order 136 ordinance amendment relative to solid waste. Is that that's the recycling one. I want to do the other ones. We'll do 53. 137, 5-year contract for solid waste and recycling with Northside Carting. This is, the mayor is hereby authorized to enter into a 5-year contract for solid waste and recycling collection and transportation with Northside Carting for a contract term commencing July 1st, 2013 and terminating June 30th, 2018. You are the first saving of the mayor.
Sure, I appreciate the opportunity to come before the council. Solid waste collection in Salem has certainly been something that we spent a tremendous amount of time on, and many of the people here worked on that effort, from the solicitor, the procurement officer, members of our Salem Recycles Committee, Julie, Dave, Sharon Kushida, who is our DEP solid waste coordinator, works out of Beverly but works closely here. And the work has been going on at least for the last 6 or 7 years. As many of you may recall, when I first came into office, we didn't bid our trash collection. We thought it was really important that we put together a solicitation and competitively bid this process. Since that time, we've steadily seen our costs for disposing of waste go down. We've been able to enhance services. We started out with bi-weekly curbside recycling collection. We now have weekly curbside recycling collection and have had it for a number of years. We've also looked at ways that we can help ourselves. Some of that was, as you may recall, limiting the number of bags we pick up, the 3-bag limit, the weight size on the bags, trying to make sure that we were being judicious. If we were going to go to curbside pickup, that we probably could coach people to getting to a 3-bag limit and have that work successfully. That work is continuing with this contract. We worked jointly with the City of Beverly, putting together our own specifications for what we'd like to see, and also working with Beverly and putting those together, essentially a menu of options and choices for vendors to bid on. You may be aware of the fact that under the Uniform Procurement Act, you're not required to bid trash for disposal. We do it anyways because we think it helps everyone sharpen their pencils and ensure that we're getting the best benefit for taxpayer dollars. When the bids came in, or I should say the proposals came, they were bids. When the bids came back in, as it turned out, combining services with Beverly at that additional tonnage really didn't provide a cost savings at all. We'll spend some time examining that. One of the reasons is we didn't allow for a combined disposal contract. I mean, you couldn't go across the line and pick up trash in Beverly because we have separate, they're under a different tonnage contract for disposal. What it did allow us to do here in Salem, though, is separate collection and disposal, meaning we have a separate contractor that will be picking up the curbside, the waste curbside and recyclables curbside. We have a different contractor who will be responsible for disposal of it. And those tipping fees have been reduced. We expect to be able to see substantial savings. We've maintained the same vendor who will be collecting all of our recyclables. When I say collecting, I mean that's where we're bringing them to, all of the recycled materials. The paper market's strong right now. We actually reap about $40,000 a year in the paper market. In terms of the other items that are commingled, we don't lose money. They don't pay us for them. And we don't pay them for them. So it takes it out of the waste stream, though, which certainly saves us the $61 tipping fee. So we see an opportunity to save at least $250,000 on this contract. We're going to spend some time trying to understand the tonnage a little bit better, because right now our waste is combined, meaning collection and disposal go in one place. Separating them out means we can have a better understanding of what's going where, how much money we're going to be able to save. And ultimately, for fiscal year 2014, we anticipate coming in with a reduction in the trash fee, the folks that are paying the trash fee, to reflect the savings that we anticipate under this contract. The reason the contract is before you is because it's more than 3 years in duration. Any contract longer than 3 years under the current procurement laws require us to come to the council for permission. As I said, it really is an army of people who are working on this. In Salem, trash collection and recycling collection is a science and an art. We spend a lot of time trying to understand what's the best benefit for our community, both from a dollars perspective and from an environment perspective. And I want to touch upon one thing, because there's been some topics about single stream recycling and how come we don't do single stream recycling. And there are a number of communities that have, I shouldn't say a number, there's a handful of communities that have recently delved into single stream recycling. If you're not familiar with it, single stream is one bin, you put it out, you put everything in there that you recycle. So your paper, your glass, your plastics goes in one bin. From a consumer perspective, it's great. You're not separating out your paper, you don't have to separately take it out. From an environmental perspective and from a waste perspective and from an economical perspective, it's not so great. Number one reason is the cost of the toters. It's something that we did examine looking at having single stream recycling. The toters are very, very expensive. And to arm every single household in your community with a toter adds significantly to your costs. The second piece is you don't reduce or you don't recycle as much, so you're not reducing what you're actually throwing away as much, because when you combine all those recyclables, it has an ability to really kind of contaminate that waste stream. It's hard, unfortunately, when you put things together to actually take them apart. It's been, the analogy that I've heard used is sort of like a scrambled egg. Once you put them all in there, it's tough to take it apart and take the paper, which has value, away from all the other things, which means you actually end up throwing away more of the things that you're hoping to recycle. This go-round, we ended up not advocating for single stream recycling, but we are hoping that the council, and I know it's not, I think it's a separate order, take a look at the concept of a mandatory recycling program, which my initial reaction to that, just to touch briefly on it, I know it might be a separate order, was, ooh, I was really kind of squishy around it. Mandatory recycling, do we have to do that? And speaking more with the team who have been leading this effort and understanding how other communities have done it, it really is an opportunity to educate, assess what we're doing, strategize and target areas where we may not be getting great recycling, why, understand it, and it's meant to be a positive tool, not something that's coming in over, cracking whips on residents, not ripping through trash barrels. To be clear, there is no trash police going out and finding a plastic jug and finding you. The idea is really to see who's recycling. There'll be ride-alongs that we'll have an opportunity to bring somebody on board as part of this grant program if we opt to this, that can help us understand how are we recycling, where are we recycling, are there better strategies? If you have a large apartment building, maybe they need different types of pickup bins than what we currently have. If you have small apartments, maybe you need to account for that, and we can work on addressing those circumstances if we have one person targeting it. There are about 76 communities that are doing it now. Most recently, or most close to us, I would say, Haverhill, Lowell, Danvers, different makeups. I think Lowell probably has a diverse housing stock like we do. They've seen terrific results, and in reaching out to them, we know that they've issued very few tickets. I think 3 in Haverhill, 3 in Lowell combined. So it's not meant to be punitive, and when you use the word mandatory, I'm a skeptic. It initially feels to me like something that you may not want to support, but I hope it's something you'll be open to and we can talk through how it might actually be beneficial. In any event, the good news is they're not tied to each other. The trash contracts, the disposal contract are separate and apart from mandatory recycling. We do see a huge opportunity to save money, to be more efficient, and hopefully to get better service. I'm going to stop now because I think there may be some questions and I want to be able to answer them. But mostly I want to thank the people who are here. We started this process almost a year ago, really thinking about what we want to put into a trash contract, how we want to bid it, right? What's the right way? Is it an RFP? Is it a solicitation? And it takes a lot of effort, and their time and energy and expertise all went into this, and I think it speaks volumes for how far we're coming. And a big shout out to the recycling volunteers. Right now, a lot of our recycling education is done by the Salem Recycles Committee. We're hopeful if we're able to do mandatory recycling, they'll actually we'll have a staff person here who can really assist them. There's a lot of enthusiasm. If you've ever been to any of the Salem Recycle events, from a clothing textile drive to recycle big plastics to the book swap we just had last weekend, it's mobbed. I mean, people in our community really appreciate the opportunity to participate in these things, and we see an opportunity to really help that process grow and prosper even more if we're able to move forward in this way. But I will stop there, and certainly Dave and Julie know a lot of the details, and we can answer any questions councilors might have.
Yeah, this one's on the north side carding one, the other one's separate. So. Does any counselor have any questions on the north side? Councilor Siegel?
I don't know if this would be the mayor or Dave, through you, Mr. President. Just a question on the pickups on the amount of trash barrels in the parks between April and November. I know it's a 5-year contract. I'm just looking at, in my ward, Splain Park, which is under renovation, and we're going to be using it a lot more once it's built. As we go forward, will there be ways to increase the barrels, or is this something that is flexible?
Yeah, we included a number of menu items within this contract so that we, at our election, could opt in for them if we wanted second pickups, if we wanted more leaf yard pickup. weeks, things like that, knowing that sometimes we desire to have a little bit hardier collection and wanting to know what those options would cost from the get-go.
Sure, thanks.
And parks are definitely one of them, Councilor.
So that was an affirmative answer, so you, Mr. President, that the parks will be picked up by Northside?
Yes.
What about the traffic islands that aren't picked up now? I have a traffic island, in the square, right at the intersection of Jefferson and Canal. I have to call periodically and have the DPW come down. There's a barrel there that they don't pick up.
I don't know that that's on the list, but I know parks are. We can certainly, we can take a look at adding it or making sure it gets picked up on the regular route, it's a Friday route.
Bennett Square, it's at the intersection of Jefferson and Canal. There's a barrel there in one of them ornamental cages.
It's a very handsome traffic island. It's right by the Eastern Bank, Jefferson, Loring, and Canal.
Thank you.
Councilor Turiel.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. This looks like this looks like a nice contract. The terms here look pretty good for the city. My one question, again, just on the local parks and ward issues, our biggest issues as far as trash go are the barrels that are down at the end, down in Palmer Cove at the end of Leach Street. Those are pretty routinely filled to overflowing and wind up sitting there for quite some time, and it's something as somebody who lives right around the corner from that. That's something that I hope that we can make sure gets attention paid to it as this goes forward.
No, it's not.
I don't see those. I see Palmer Cove, Levitt Street listed here, but I don't see those particular barrels listed within it, and that's something we need to be following up on.
Councilor Siegel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Looking at I think I might have another one that might need to be added. I don't see anything for the dog park on here, and we might want to get pick up there at least a couple times a week, especially in the summer.
I know it's on there, we're probably calling it something different.
Okay, I just don't see the name of it, that's
Yeah,
why.
and we may not have a name, but I know we do include that.
Good enough for me, just want to make sure.
There's a couple other things that we're doing. We're stepping up the ability to enforce the response that we want through liquidated damages, if you would, with the collective. And also, we are requiring a smaller truck to be available for the park pickups. A lot of times, the larger trucks would do damage if they drove over to pick up a barrel, and that makes it less likely to get picked up. So we have a smaller truck that we use for the parks and also for narrow streets that are difficult to get down with larger trucks, whether there's snow, snow emergency, snow banks, or just construction activity, or public safety, public works activities there. So we have a smaller truck that's included in the contract.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the committee behind me, which I can't see, I apologize. I guess on a follow-up to this question would be, what is the process in place for our own DPS, Department of Public Services, to pick up barrels that are missed and or are outside the scope, and when we pick them up, where do they get disposed of, and is it part of the contract, or is that over and above?
The committee?
What we tried to do in this contract, I'm not saying we got every barrel, but we're very close to Tom O'Shea to come up with a list. And again, what we call an area, that may be the confusion. But we try to incorporate everything into this contract. And if something gets missed or if it's above and beyond, they go down and pick it up and they bring it to the transfer station. Does that answer your question, Council?
I guess, so,
Go ahead.
if I could follow up. So when something gets missed, we bring it to the transfer station, how does that get accounted for in tonnage, per tonnage? Not that I'm saying it's an exorbitant amount of tonnage, but it's just a curious question, because I know for a fact that sometimes if they miss, the DPS will just send somebody down to pick up a barrel.
We do get tonnage slips from DPS that in addition to tonnage slips that we get from the contractor.
So in the past, Counselor, because the collection and disposal were one contract, it was a lump sum, it was included all together. Now we'll be paying a separate per ton fee, so whoever picks it up, if it ends up in a place that gets disposed of, the city's gonna be paying that tipping fee for it.
I mean, just, I don't mean to belabor the point, but the willows in the summertime, no offense. The barrels just can't get picked up once by Northside Carting on, I don't care what day it is, especially on the weekends. I mean, we used to have a guy that would go around and basically fill the men's cottage to capacity. So how do we deal with that, I guess is my
Councilor
question.
McCarthy, we always supplement what goes on down at the Willows.
No, I know we do.
Right, so this contract only reflects what Northside's responsibility is.
Okay.
We still have the regular pickups we have going on there to offset and augment the work that Northside Carting, the vendor, does. So it will happen much like it happens now, which is on the weekends, we have, especially the busier times, we have people down there routinely. And in addition to Northside's regular pickups, we augment that with city staff.
Fine, thank you.
Council Sosnowski?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to question a couple of things here. First of all, there's been a reduction in the number of barrels at Collins Cove, all right? And I would like to request that that number go up to at least 4. It was 5. It's been cut to 3. What I'd like to see is a barrel at the entrance to the park. And there's 3 primary entrances, one by where the beach and the park intersect, one by down where the tennis court is, and there's a 3rd entrance where you come in over by Connors Road. However, the request for the 4th barrel is during these particular months that they're being picked up is the fact that the park is used by a lot of different softball leagues. And the teams, they have these energy drinks, they have the softball wrappers, they have snacks, they have everything. And there used to be a barrel by each side, 3rd base side, 1st base side. I'm okay with reducing that to 1, maybe behind the backstop or something. But during those months, I'd like to see at least 4 total. I mean, you know, as I described, the 3 entrances in that one, because the park is in need of those. So I'd like to see that. And the other thing that I'd like to know about, and I don't know if it's here or if it's something else, somewhere else here, but I don't see it. There's a dumpster that, not a dumpster, excuse me, a barrel by the Quaker, I think it's the Quaker Cemetery, where the kids walk home from school down Essex Street. I think it's right around the 400 number of Essex Street. All right, you know the little, it's a very old antique cemetery that's there. I don't know if it's in this contract, if it's something else that we do, but I'd like to get that put in here someplace if it's not. And other than that, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with what you're referring to,
It's a
Councilor.
little cemetery between.
Well, I know the cemetery, not the dumpster.
No, it wasn't, I misspoke, not a dumpster. No, a barrel. Actually, it's in, they had it in one of these really nice ornate steel framed things that the barrel sits inside of, because it's in a historic area, and it was really nice, but sometimes it's removed, and sometimes it's not replaced until I call for it, and it's basically in the general area there, because people walking home from the school, they stop at several of the neighborhood 5 and dime stores, and they take their candy bars. Some of them are still gonna throw it on the street anyway, but, you know, if we had something there, it'd be nicer, so it'd be good if we could do that, please.
Council Brady?
Thank you, Mr. President, through you. The issue, Dave, of missed pickups, there's a provision there that it requires the contractor to address all missed pickups within 24 hours. That, I think, is an important issue, because that's something that, as ward counselors, we often get calls about in terms of complaints about missed pickups, whether the contractor forgot to go down the street, for whatever reason couldn't go down the street. I actually had been emailing Dominic over the last couple of days over an issue that came up on Friend Street, where some person parked their car and blocked the truck from going down the street, so they couldn't finish actually the run down there. The problem was, this was on Thursday last week, and it took them until this morning to pick it up, the trash, after the resident called Northside multiple times, probably about 6 calls, I believe he said he'd made, and he was told repeatedly over the phone someone's on their way down right now, yep, they'll be there like in an hour, and this person was just kind of giving the runaround. And then obviously ended up calling me. I was told it was gonna be picked up on Monday when I called. Then at the end of the day, it wasn't picked up. And then I was told it was gonna be picked up today. It was finally picked up. And those are things I think that occur. They don't occur all the time, at least in my experience in Ward 6. But they kind of like go through cycles of them occurring. And I think this is a good provision having this in here. Now, one of the statements in here, it says, contractors required to collect all pickups missed due to driver error. In this particular situation, though, like on Friend Street, it wasn't driver error. It was some dingbat that was parked the wrong way that blocked the truck from going down there. So do we still hold the contractor responsible, though, within the limits of the 24 hours? It would have been nice to get the pickup to happen the following day.
Right.
But that's not what transpired, so.
I think we should, and we will, hold it to that 24-hour period. It's all about communication. There's no reason, if a driver can't get down the street for whatever reason, a phone call can't be made to my office and allow us to help facilitate getting a truck moved, getting a pile of snow moved, whatever that reason is, whatever the reason, or whether there's a construction crew going on. We had a number of issues over on Beckett Street during the construction there, where the drivers just weren't comfortable driving down a road that was under construction, even though they could go probably 3/4 of the road without impacting the construction, and they could back up to get out. There were police details right there, but they just refused to go down. It's communication, and we're going to be working with Northside Carney to make sure that it's effective. We try to minimize those types of things that happen.
And I think for a lot of residents too, at least the ones I've spoken to with these issues over the years, it ends up being, what is kind of the procedure? You know, they call Northside because they figure why, go through some middleman, essentially, me or any other counselor or someone in the city, when they can call up the service provider themselves and try to get them to do it. And so I don't know, probably 9 times out of 10, maybe that's effective in terms of that. But when it's not, and someone's told repeatedly a truck's on their way down and no truck ever appears, then they're calling me and I'm trying to figure out what to do. So maybe one of the things that can be looked at, and I know it's a little bit beyond the scope of the contract with them, is to set our own internal understanding as to what the procedure is, what happens, who people should be contacting to make sure, because there's been incidents in the past where I've contacted Julie and she's helped me out, I've contacted Northside directly, but it takes a lot of machinations to try to get to that point.
Okay, we can do that.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
You're welcome. Oriole.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I'll concur with Councilor Creevy on this. The Northside overall generally does a pretty good job and pretty efficient job getting things taken care of. But when they do mess up, it tends to be epic. And we've had a few of those. It doesn't, like that, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it tends to be very bad. I think, like the councilor said, having a process in place that we have internally that everybody is aware of, all the, particularly the ward councilors and all the people who are kind of the first points of contact. If we have a very kind of clear chain of where to go and how to do and what happens when the next person in the chain is on vacation or something, I think that will really help solve these issues. And the other provision that I saw that is nice, so long as we follow up with it properly, is the provision for if they spill stuff in the course of picking up, which does happen more frequently than any of us would like, including them probably, having a process to make sure that that's followed up upon is going to be important as part of it. So we have all the right leverage and all the right penalties in place, but we just have to make sure we have a consistent mechanism for enforcing them.
Councilor O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a whole series of questions. I don't know who to address them to. Mandatory recycling, Mayor. We're not gonna have dumpster divers, right?
We're not talking about the mandatory.
That's not in front of us.
All right, I'll go to Christmas tree pickups. Can we talk about Christmas tree pickups? It's in the contract, right? Okay. I had such a problem this year with Christmas tree pickups from the end of December for Greek Christmas being a little later. The trees were blowing around like the 1st of February. And I've numerous calls to your office to have them picked up, and it took at least 3 weeks to pick up the Christmas trees. It was supposed to be picked up and burned down at the Willows, supposedly. Now, the contractor's gonna pick them up, or does the city pick them up? Says the contractor will pick them up. When is the contractor obligated to pick them up? July 1st or the end of Christmas?
There's a
I saw one the other day on Monty Road.
Let me answer the question.
Okay.
There's a 2-week period, and Julie, can you help me when that starts?
David, I can't hear you. Can you speak up?
Excuse me, there's a 2-week period in this new contract, and that's for us to discuss every year. And it doesn't always go according to the bonfire. The bonfire actually only burns a very small percentage of the trees. So we've added a second week for the Christmas tree pickup.
Used to
And
be
then-
1 week, so
Correct.
we've added 2 weeks, it's at our choice. So we're always trying to fit within Little Christmas, Great Christmas, there's a lot of things, that this, the bonfire to deal with it. But last year we've only had 1 week, so now we've had 2 weeks.
For you, Mr. Chairman. We used to have a calendar we would put out that I would stick up in the kitchen, and we'd know
Yeah.
what the leaf was on after this. Have we given that up?
You know what, when we went to every week recycling, we decided we didn't want to put the calendar out because you used to have that calendar so you knew which week, you had for curbside pickup. We have actually talked about going back to it because it does help with leaf pickups, with hazardous waste days, and there's a lot of that stuff that we do in advance, so look for us to be bringing that back.
To Julie before that. We
And
do
she
that.
has heeded your words.
Put it in the water bill and send it out. I've got one 5 years ago posted in the kitchen. All right, the next question, yard waste, which really bothers me about yard waste.
Yep.
Julie, you have your hand up, you wanna address?
Could I just address that? We actually have put the calendar in the Park and Rec brochure that you'll be getting in the next week or two. So it'll be right in the front of the Park and Rec brochure, so.
That already gets out to every
Correct.
household and, right.
Because the problem with putting it in the bill inserts we found is most people don't read it, they throw it away. It's a very expensive process.
When do you then, David? Through you, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yard waste. Says here that mutually agreeable 5 weeks of yard waste. Okay. I had a problem on Loring Avenue, starting around Christmas with yard waste. There were 8 brown recycled bags on the sidewalk in front of a house on Loring Avenue. And I called the mayor's office, at least 2 months. They would call, outside, it's gonna be picked up tomorrow. There's a truck going to pick up the 8 bags, recycled bags, sitting on the sidewalk at such and such, Loring Avenue. I go bet it every day, pulling out of my yard, out of the street. And it was fine, and no one's here from the mayor's office, but it was finally picked up like 1st of February. Well, Mayor, I don't expect you to handle yard waste bags, but the secretary called, and then Christian called, and I kept receiving emails, it's gonna be picked up tomorrow. Well, tomorrow came, and it was never picked up till the next week, and that was promised again. Finally, they vanished, after we persistent. But it must happen everywhere. Why don't we pick them up when we're supposed to? Why, we tell people.
So this has been a source of frustration for me as well, Counselor, in that when there are missed pickups, and there are some chronic areas because they're small and they don't have a small enough truck to get down. Lemon Street Court comes to mind. And if there's a car blocking one way, they can't get the truck down and they don't park the truck and walk down. And then there are areas where they missed it and they don't get back to it, yet they tell us they're going to. One of the things we've done with this contract is strengthen the language and penalties for when they don't achieve the results, especially the result they're telling us they're going to achieve.
And they're telling you, and they're telling our secretary it's gonna be picked up.
And they're telling you if you were to call. So it has been a source of frustration for us. Frankly, it's been on the uptick over the last several weeks. I've spent some time speaking with both Dave and Julie about what is going on and really needing to, as we begin a new contract in July, sit down and spend some time understanding why this is happening and making sure it doesn't happen going forward.
Two last questions. I guess I'm gonna, are they gonna buy some decent trucks instead of these tin cans they drive around now?
So the new contract requires all the trucks to be 5 years or younger, newer.
Painted, that'll say Salem on it?
They are supposed to have Salem on it as well.
Supposed to.
Yeah, clean, yeah, so they're supposed to now, frankly, under the current contract. And they will have to be 5 years or newer and clean and painted as opposed to
All right,
some.
then one last question, Mayor. I know you're gonna, we all. Have you ever thought about giving out the blue containers to people that put out the recyclable papers, the globes and what have you, in a bag from Crosby's? Great advertisement for Market Basket from Crosby's, having on the sidewalk. Well, we thought about giving them out. I know they're $8 at DPW and $8 at Crosby's. What could we thought, giving them out to people that have moved in, that don't know where to get them and don't?
We've talked about maybe trying to subsidize it, because you're right, when somebody leaves, sometimes they take their bin with them, and people don't buy it. You can recycle in anything, though. We have these green bumper stickers, so if you have a laundry basket, if you have a trash can, as long as it's got the green sticker on it, you can fill it with recyclables. And a lot of people use use something as an alternative to the bin because it works better for them.
When it's raining and they put the paper bags out, it's gonna be all over the street.
We actually talked about perhaps being able to look at different size bins. This is, again, getting back to, I don't wanna mix issues, but having some targeted information and assessment. There might be areas that need smaller bins. There might be large, buildings that could benefit from having a toter where people just come down and drop it off and it gets wheeled out. So we're open to those sorts of concepts and trying to work with people to recycle.
Last observation, Mayor. I have a resident in my ward who has a yellow one. I know that's in Lexington. And they pick it up.
Yeah.
They pick up the...
I have an orange one, so they...
Can I ask what?
Just give them out, maybe better than...
Well, giving them out is very, very expensive to just give them away. There might be a new resident program. We're kicking around some ideas to try and make it more cost effective.
You're trying, thank you.
Yep.
Can I just dovetail on those containers? They're, for the amount that the recycling program's growing, those containers are awful small. And you end up putting, some beside it all the time. And up Home Depot, they have one that's the same size as the legal trash barrel for what the contract calls for, that's blue and has all the, the signs on it. I think it was like $16 when I got one. I was surprised. The next size up with the flip was like $40.
Right.
So one of my questions is, if we want people to do this, is to make it as easy as we can for them. And if there was ever a grant program like we did for those, something struck me that the $50,000 to enforce the mandatory recycling, if we got everybody in the city one of those barrels, I bet we would almost double what we recycle because we would make it easy for them. Because I used to keep mine in my house for the week or the 2 weeks, because the plastic bottles that people put out separate on a windy day blow up and down the street, and you end up recycling the second time when they come in your yard, which is kind of like recycling, I guess. But now that I have that barrel, I take them outside like a regular trash. The plastic bag with the plastic bottles in it, and the paper bag that goes in there, and they put them, it's not single stream, they separate it, there, but I don't have to store it in my house all week anymore, because I have that one simple little barrel. And that $50,000 would go a long way to bringing those barrels and would probably make us 90% mandatory on a voluntary basis by making it easier for people to help us.
Well, that's definitely the goal. So, so it's always, we're trying to strike that balance, Counselor, between, someone who's maybe more frail and struggles, pulling things out. So we don't want them to be too large, but I know exactly what you're saying. With a family, we go through 2 or 3 recycling bins and have 1 trash bag. So we're trying to figure out what that balance is. And the state grant, I don't think it allows us specifically to buy equipment like that, but once we can target those areas, we can have somebody research what those are. We might be able to subsidize the cost of those bins and provide them for people, or as I said, we're looking at maybe a new resident program so that every new resident gets a bin as a means to try and remind and cultivate more recycling in the community.
Yeah, I'll just tell you, instead of organizing it the night before and the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning before, I just take that blue barrel out now. It's like 90% easier for me with that system. And I don't know if people realize it, but it's $15, $16. I think I was surprised how cheap that recycle barrel was. My other question is, if I could, is the yard waste collection. It's on page 9 and page 23. It's 7B and 2F. They're a little redundant, but neither one of them mentioned the provisions to bring in yard waste up to the transfer station yourself. Are we still going to be able to do that? I don't see it in there anywhere.
Well, that's part of the lease of the transfer station, so it doesn't really have anything to do with the curbside pickup or disposal.
Okay, my other kind of personal bone of contention from feedback is that it's supposed to be for Salem residents. And they,
Are you talking about the transfer
yeah,
station
it's
now?
supposed to be for Salem residents only, and I fully understand that, and that's the way it should be. But, there's a provision, if you come up with a pickup truck, you have to have a Salem registration also. And there's nothing in our rules that say that. It's for Salem residents.
I mean, we've been through this before with the
Right.
transfer station. I think they're trying to avoid contractors who live in Salem, who are trying to get rid of,
Exactly.
debris inappropriately.
But, you know, the burden of proof is upon them for that. I mean, I had a friend borrow his co-worker's pickup truck, who happens to live in Gloucester. Let the co-worker take his truck home his car home for the weekend, take the truck, clean out his mother's yard down in off Lafayette Street, and be turned away. Now that man had to drive that pickup truck back to Gloucester full of leaves.
Yeah, nuts.
You know what I mean? And it was just the most ridiculous thing. He wasn't a contractor. He just had a truck that wasn't registered in Salem. And now, if you have a contractor come and do your leaves in your yard, and you drive up with them, why can't you drop them in Salem? You know, why can't you drop them at your transfer station? You know, you might have to pay for the truck. They shouldn't have to pay to drop the leaves off. You know, that's what I don't understand. It's you know, it's on the flip side, which people get away with, is a Salem person with a basic Salem pickup truck goes to Peabody and does their cousin's job, they can come over and dump it easy. But the Salem guy with a Gloucester pickup truck can't do his own. And something has to be done to make that fair and equitable. I mean, you know, I think the burden of proof is on our side to prove that somebody is a contractor. You know, and you know when they show up time after time. But we shouldn't have somebody from Salem turned away because they don't have a Salem registration.
I agree.
You know, so can we
That's not part of this. I mean, this is, the transfer station lease is a whole separate,
okay, well,
it happens to be north side. And we have brought those concerns to them before, Counselor, and they're not always as responsive as we'd like.
all right, that's enough, sir. Thank you.
Councilman McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Through you, and separate topic. Who's responsible for the appliance TV pickup? I know that we have a program where you go down to DPS and pay, but who is the contractor for it?
It's not any of these,
CRT, they're out of, where are they out of? Southborough or something. It's CRT.
all they do is like this.
Right.
So they're the ones that do the white goods and the TV?
No, the white goods are done by Northside Carding. The
Okay.
TVs and the sticker program is done by CRT.
Okay. Just on a side note,
Mm-hmm.
could, the form, when someone, because I just had this recently happen to me,
Yep.
not to me, someone in the ward called me, and I actually had to go down. It was at that freak the snowstorm we had a couple Fridays ago. They had scheduled to have the TV picked up on Saturday. Obviously, after the snow, something happened. But she brought the TV out and it didn't get picked up. And DPS was good enough to come down and grab it after she called me. But on the form, it says Northside Carding and gives their phone number. And her initial call was to them, and they said, we no longer deal with the City of Salem's TV pickup. And she had no number to call. That's why she ended up calling me. So that form needs to be changed. That's just a side note. Because she had no idea who to call, and when I called down to DPS, it was on a Saturday, and they're like, we don't know who to call either.
Right.
Julie takes care of you on that.
No, she didn't.
Anyone else have any more questions? I just have one. How long have we been recycling?
Curbside?
Yeah, I think it went back to Neil Barrett.
I remember when I was,
Yeah.
I think I was 93 or 94, I worked for the park department in the summertime. I remember passing out those blue bins.
Yep.
But I can't remember when people didn't recycle as much as they do now. Not even that much.
Exactly.
That's recycling.
It goes back to Neil Harrington when we started alternate week, right, recycling. We had the drop-off center at DPW, if you remember, we used to have dumpsters, you could bring it down yourself too.
I mean, I guess, no, yeah. Was it someone else's turn? I'm sorry. I just, can I make one last pitch for, not to use the larger barrels, but to, as far as within the rules, it allows for you to have 35-gallon barrels or those green bags, right? If you put 3 little white bags in one 35-gallon bag, you're good. But it doesn't allow you to take those 3 bags you're legally allowed and put them into one of those giant barrels that people wheel in and out, because they won't flip up the cover and take those bags. And my argument is that if you find a 4th bag in that big barrel, don't take it. But if somebody's allowed 3 bags, I had this debate with Robbie Joy. I said, don't look at it as a barrel, look at it as a holder of bags if you want. Because instead of the dogs getting into those bags on the side of the road, you can still use that big container, but you can't use it for more than you're legally allowed. And they won't open it up. Yet the same worker will flip open your regular bag and take, if somebody's neat and puts 3 white bags in, they'll take them right out of there and walk away with them and leave the barrel there. But they won't do that to a larger barrel. Once it's a 36-gallon barrel, they won't flip the cover over on it to see what's in it. And I just wish we had some gray area on that. Especially the older folks get a big barrel like that, it's got those big wheels on it, they wheel it out, they leave it there, they take it back. And if it has more than what's allowed in it, don't take it. But if it has, 1, 2, or 3 of those big bags, they should be able to take that. That's enough for that, thank you.
Councilor Sosnowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this point, no further discussion. I'd move that Council Order 137 be reported out of committee to the full council with a favorable recommendation with the adjustments and amendments that have been discussed.
Councilor Sosnowski's recommendation is seconded by Councilor Mayell. All those in favor? Opposed? Next order we're going to take up is 138, the contract for the acceptance and processing of recyclables with Newark Group. This is just basically, the mayor is hereby authorized to enter into contract for the acceptance and processing of recyclable materials with the Newark Group for contract terms to commence July 1st, 2013, and terminate June 30th, 2016, with options to extend for 2 additional years and 1-year increments. Now, is this on Jefferson Avenue? Is that the Newark Group on Jefferson Avenue? So this is just where we're going to be, Northside Cutting, will we bring the recyclables to that? Does anyone have any questions on the contract? Councilor Siegel?
I just got one. This has to do with both number 138 and 139 council orders. I know they both have set terms, then extensions for a period of times in 1-year increments. I'd ask that we add the same language on these that we did to the lease on 120 Washington Street regarding the 1-year increments. Because basically what we're doing is this is basically a 7-year contract and the other one's a 10-year contract. I don't see a problem with it, but I think it's just for, the city council's own protection, just like the same language you used in the Washington Street one. And unfortunately, I don't have that with me.
Which is, I'm not familiar with that.
It was basically something to the effect at the end of the set term, before there's a date certain, that we just have to kind of okay the extension.
So if after, I believe it's after the 5-year contract, if we were gonna renew it for another year, it would have to come back to city council. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, on the second page, in secondary fiber supply agreement, I think it's paragraph 2, number 2, with the second paragraph of that subsection 2. I don't understand why we're talking about a price per ton on floor, a price per ton on other parts of this, but then in that second paragraph, it goes to 0 on the floor and 0 on the ceiling. Could someone explain why it's 0? In this document here.
Fire department doesn't want you here.
We'll wait for the fire department to pass. I'm just trying to,
Plastic and metal.
The plastic and the metal and all of the other things other than paper.
that's not worth anything to us?
No, and actually they lose money in processing that, however, we don't have to pay anything. They're losing money processing that right now.
So what you're saying then, the only thing we're really making the money on then is the paper and cardboard?
Well, I would argue that we're making money for everything that cost us 0. We're not paying $61 a ton to dispose of it.
Oh,
so
that's a good point as well. Yes, okay. All right, at least it's been explained. Thank you.
I think they prefer to make money off of it. There's just no market for those commingled products.
All right, thank you.
You all set?
Also, thank you, Mr. President.
O'Keefe?
Well, we've already approved the contract. Can I get a clarification from the city engineer or the mayor about barrel pickup? I've just noticed it wasn't included in this schedule of streets on 35. The square I mentioned, I erroneously told you Pickman Square, it's Loring Square.
Yeah, we got it, we know
Got
what
Got it? It's on there?
you called it Vinin, you called it.
I know.
Thank you, Kim.
And also, to let you know, the mayor's office is here. When you were talking about them, it said that there was no one represented from the mayor. Actually, the mayor's here, and
Dominic's
her
here.
aid's here.
Dominic is there.
Oh, when you were talking about it.
When you look over, I couldn't see the mayor.
I feel like I
Well,
should
you
be
know
ducking.
that's the
We're
mayor right
blocking
there.
your view.
Got a line here.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further, Councilor Riel?
Thank you, through you, Mr. President. I have really one question that pertains to this and Order 139. I noticed we have a 5-year contract on North Side with no renewal options on here according to this. We have a 3-year on the Newark Group contract with 2-year, extended out to up to 5. And then the disposal one is 5-year with up to additional 5 years, going all the way out to 10 years. I'm just wondering if there's any particular reason why they're being, even though they're all up right now for redoing, is there a reason why the terms are not convergent with each other this time around?
I think the 5-year contract for inside carting is sort of standard in the industry because of the type of materials they have to buy and the equipment they have to buy. People don't really usually bid lower than 5 years, and we don't want to bid more than 5 years because we don't know what the market will be here in 5 years. In terms of North Shore Recycle Fiber, 3-year contract, we don't know in 3 years if we will go with single stream, so I don't think we want to limit ourselves to being able to go to single stream. We don't think that's practical now, but it may be down the road. And in terms of the disposal contract, we bid it both ways. We bid it 5 years and 10 years. We thought about taking the 10-year option, but we really don't know what's going to happen in that economy right now. The disposal prices are down tremendously from 5 years ago when we first bid it, so we wanted to cover all of our options.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions to vote on Councilor Siegel's amendment, or just the way we wanted it after the 5-year, the contract's up, that we vote, comes back for city council approval after each extension? We'll add that on. All those in favor? Opposed? Councilor Sosnowski?
I make a motion at this point that as amended, the Council Order 138 be reported out of committee to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Motion by Councilor Sosnowski, seconded by Councilor O'Keefe. All those in favor? Opposed? Next order is Council Order 139. And that is the 5-year contract for the acceptance and disposal of solid waste with Covanta Association. The mayor is hereby authorized to enter into a contract for the acceptance and disposal of solid waste with Covanta Haverhill Associates for a term to commence July 1st, 2013 and terminate July 30th, 2018 with 5 1-year options to renew. Also, with this one, I think we want, after the extensions, that comes back before the council. Anyone have any questions on this? Is just for where they're bringing, Northside Carting will be bringing the trash to this place. I think they already bring it there now anyway, is it? No, they bring it somewhere else?
Right now, it's their choice where they bring it, because we have a lump sum contract. I think they kind of play the market and try and get the best prices. Now, we have a separate disposal contract, so whoever is picking up our waste will be required to bring it to one of these 3 facilities. One of the advantages of Covanta is they do have a facility in Lynn, they have one in Haverhill, but Lynn being closer, it's an easier run to get to.
Through you, Mr. President, probably to the city solicitor who's ever doing the contract. One thing I did notice, it's just a typo in 1.3 with delivery to delivery points. Halfway through it says, community shall have the right to select the delivery point that is one of 3 defined delivery points set forth in 13.1. If you go to 13.1, it only lists the Lynn and Danvers facilities.
Hold on.
So it only lists Lynn or Danvers, so that either has to be changed to 2 or in 13.1 under delivery, add in the Haverhill. So.
Fix that.
Thanks.
That's it.
Well set.
Move adoption.
No.
Just one thing, it may not be needed, is on that one for delivery point, is the facility, the Haverhill location?
It's
If
a
that's
di-
the case, then it
It's a
would be
different
correct.
term. You need to, it needs to be the same term.
What's that? The Haverhill or Danvers
What is-
on the, Covanta contract?
They have the opportunity to go to each of the three, and they're gonna work that out with Covanta. So all three should be listed.
I think they are.
They are listed, but we may, maybe in one spot it got eliminated, but all three should be listed.
No, I see where it says facility, but
Right, that lists behavioral, but then if you go to page 15, delivery point is defined, and that just says, subject to 1.3, the facility, which has been defined previously as
oh,
Haverhill,
gotcha, okay.
or the other two.
Gotcha, so you
it's-
define it as the
So
facility.
let's cover it.
You gotta search for it, it's there.
Gotcha, sorry about that, my mistake.
That was a good pick.
Council Prevey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question, either Dave or Julie, regarding section 1.4, where it talks about recycling. And it talks about us as the community being required to fall under the Massachusetts regulations promulgated at 310 CMR 19.083 and otherwise pursuant to, and it goes on from there. What are those requirements that we're obligated to be held to?
The mayor's about to pass out mandatory recycling, a DEP fact sheet on wastebands, and what the 310 refers to is all the wastebands that have been imposed by DEP over the years. So for example, things like yard waste, things like gypsum board, things like paper, plastic, and it's very well listed there in terms of the dates all of those were imposed. So
Okay.
DEP regulates what can be thrown away as trash.
Okay,
And
so
there are a number of things.
So these are all DEP regulations that we're following.
And I should add that we're required to follow.
Right.
So, leaf and yard waste pickup, you may recall, you used to be able to put that out at the curb and we picked it up just like trash. That no longer can occur. And they are really beginning to step it up. We've been told that DEP is going to be retaining their own monitors to be at these disposal sites. And if you are found to be disposing of items that are in the waste stream in significant amounts, they are going to take action. It can include fines. I know at one point they were talking about rejecting loads if you have too much of the banned substances in your trash. They do have a zero tolerance policy with some things like household hazardous waste and tires and things like monitors, things like that. Some of that's just because of the hazard materials included within them. And the damage they can do. Leaf and yard waste, they have rejected loads when they first started that ban all the time. So it is something that we need to be much more mindful of, and they do include all the recyclable items. So if you are a community that's not recycling a lot, you could find yourself in a bit of trouble with the DEP.
Mr.
Yeah, I
President,
spoke with them today, and actually they're considering lowering the percentages. Right now, if a load has 20% of paper, they will reject it and potentially file a community in a hauler or a telehauler. But they're thinking about reducing those in half, so if the load down in the future has 10% of paper, so they're making those loads stricter.
Okay, thank you. Section 5.1 for monthly payments, it says, after the end of each calendar month, CHA will render a bill to the community and for the total fees due for such period, including costs for disposal of unacceptable waste. Could you describe that in a little bit more detail in terms of the unacceptable waste, how will it be billed, numerically, what will it be billed for?
I think what the mayor articulated is some of those unacceptable waste, if they had to pay a special fee. What I've been told by Covanta is that happens very, very rarely, but they have that in there to protect themselves if they had a bad load. So I think in general, we wouldn't have to pay anything extra. But if they had a load of 10 televisions and they had to pay $50 each to get rid of those televisions, they would charge us.
Okay, all right. I just want to be clear about that, just so it doesn't become something where we routinely get bills from them every month and they found a little bit of something in someone's trash over here and a little bit of something there, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, our monthly bills are far exceeding what we originally had contracted for.
It's going to put the onus on us and our contractor to really be the police when you're picking things up at the curb. And there have been occasions where you see like a hazardous material, somebody snuck asbestos into a trash bag, it didn't get found out, but somehow when it got there, it ripped open and it became, those are the things that, you know, you need to be really conscious of.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yep. Any further questions from Councilor McCarthy?
Just a quick follow-up on that one, that Council Privy brought up. If, just per chance, as someone just used the analogy, if someone threw away 6 or 10 televisions in a truck, I guess my question is, why would that come back on the city and not the hauler? Because it's, I mean, one thing if you have a bag that had someone had tried to hide asbestos in, but obviously if the trash hauler picks up 6 televisions and throws them in the load, and then it gets rejected by the facility, wouldn't that go back to the contractor?
Absolutely. It is. Our contract with Northside Carter speaks directly to that.
Okay.
It's their responsibility to make sure what they're putting in their truck is acceptable waste.
I mean, obviously, if someone's trying to hide unacceptable things, that's one thing. But if they just happen to, you know, whatever, I'm not even gonna go down that road, but if 6 televisions end up in the back of a truck, then.
Then Northside Carter is responsible.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I just want to question, just wanted to ask Julie, where do rugs fit into here? You've come across a few times people putting a rug out and they don't pick up the rug.
That's correct.
Where does it fit into something that's hazardous?
You can bring it into the transfer station. It's not, it doesn't fit into something that's hazardous, but the DEP has talked for several years about that being one of the next wastebands. Carpeting is very difficult to dispose of, and it's a lot of different chemicals, so most communities will not accept it curbside as we won't.
Yeah, 'cause I put a couch out, and then a neighbor put a rug out, and it just seemed a lot smaller. And I just put, they won't take, and it's legal for them not to take a rug. Is it under these substances?
No, it's not. As I said, that's one of the bans that's been discussed, potential bans that's been discussed for some time. We put it in the last contract knowing it was coming. It hasn't come yet, but we expect it will come down.
So in that contract, they don't, it's one of the things they don't have to pick up?
It's still excluded.
Okay, thank you.
All set. Further questions? Okay.
Move for adoption of the
Keith moves 139. Matter out of committee with
With the amendment.
we'll vote on the amendment. First, let's vote on the amendment, legal amendment to add the language that after 5 years, the extensions must come back for city council approval.
Yes.
All in favor, opposed?
Move adoption.
So Keith moves for matter out of committee with the recommendation.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councilor Curriell. All those in favor, opposed? The last order is Council Order 136, ordinance amendment relative to solid waste. And this is the mandatory recycling. Do you want to discuss that now? We talked about it earlier a little.
Yeah, I do want to call attention to, I think Councilor Turiel had given us a number of queries that folks had reached out to him about, and we put together, thanks to Julie's efforts and Dave's efforts, a sort of an FAQ. I think we tried to make sure everybody had that, not just Councilor Turiel. And we did just pass out the information on the waistband. That is another important issue to contend with. We certainly are in the middle. DEP has these waistbands, and it certainly sounds like from what we're hearing, they're going to step up their enforcement of them. This idea of the mandatory recycling can help us from that perspective as well if we end up being in a position where they're going to start enforcing those waistbands. Having this provision as part of the local ordinance would certainly help us avoid problems with compliance there.
That's okay.
Through to the mayor. I can't find it in here, Mayor, but is there going to be a penalty if you don't recycle? It says mandatory. I'm not going to approve an ordinance. I'm not favorable to an ordinance that charges someone. But if you say we're not going to dumpster dump, look in someone's bags. How are we going to handle this? How are you going to do manual recycling if you don't have someone poking in?
The idea is to be proactive and to be looking at the recycling containers. So everyone who has a curbside container, trying to understand, think about doing ride-alongs and understanding, looking at daily data tonnage, so we know who's collecting what routes, and making it a little bit less personal. Maybe the Monday route has a lot less recycling, but it has the same number of housing units as the Friday route. How do we examine what's going on there? What's behind that? How do we target and drill down to understand how can we incentivize and enhance recycling? It is not meant to be punitive. And we are not going to be ripping open trash bags. We are not going to be looking to fine from the get-go for anything. The idea is to educate people, to do some assessment in terms of who, what, and how we recycle and where we can improve. The DEP requires that there be a fine included. And if you look at the ordinance, I believe it's warnings and a fine is a last resort. As I mentioned, Haverhill and Lowell, who we reached out to, issued 3 fines, in total. So I totally concur with your thinking, Counselor. I don't want to issue any fines. I really want this to be proactive and positive. We have a community that's really thirsty for green initiatives. We know that by the events that people attend, by the number of recycling, amount of recycling we've done. But we have kind of tapered off. We've been at 19% now for 4 years, and we haven't been able to elevate to that next level. And we're hoping that by targeting, we're the person who can really target what we're doing and how we're recycling and help people recycle more, we might be able to move past that 19% number. We also know the communities that have undertaken mandatory recycling, they've seen their numbers jump. So I understand your hesitancy to fine anyone or be punitive for this. I share it, and our approach is going to be one that we think is positive and meant to encourage, not punish.
But Mayor, through you, I think that's a big brother attitude the state's fostering on a local community to threaten the homeowner that they'll be fined if they don't separate their recyclables. They're gonna take them to the next door neighbor.
I think they're
on the sidewalk in front of someone else's house.
But also, I would agree. I wish there wasn't a condition or requirement of the grant that we include that. But I also think multiple languages, different housing units. We now really get to target and strategize how we can help people. And the trade-off is, if they're going to give you the money, they want you to comply with certain rules. And one of which is the necessity for a fine. And I say that it's necessary that it be in the ordinance. I really think we're the community that is not looking to fine people. We went through a trash process where we limited bags to 3. We didn't issue any fines. We didn't try and make that punitive. There was a lot of education. There was a lot of reaching out to people. And we transitioned through that smoothly. So I'd like to think we could transition through this smoothly too.
Thank you, Mayor.
I have Councilman McCarthy, and then Councilor Torriello, and Councilman McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the mayor. It's the fact sheet, mandatory recycling background, and how does mandatory recycling typically work?
I'm sorry,
It's, I don't know, the pages aren't numbered, so it's about halfway through the
little FAQ?
Yes.
Yeah.
How does mandatory recycling work? Residents will be required to leave their recycling bins in a clearly marked recycling container out until trash is collected. It's been my experience that there's basically, if whatever day trash is picked up, if mine is Monday, that the trash truck is in my neighborhood in the morning, and whoever else has Monday, the recycle truck's in that neighborhood, and then they flip-flop, like morning, afternoons, because they don't typically, in my experience, the trash hauler doesn't typically put the trash truck and the recycling truck in the same neighborhood at the same time. It would just be too congested, so they try to work one side of the city and they work the other side. So I guess my question would be, if on a day like today, where it was extremely windy, if my recycle was picked up first, I wouldn't leave my bin on the street until the trash got picked up. I would take my bin and throw it underneath my porch, and then the way I read this is they wouldn't pick up my trash.
Well, this was a memo that Dave put together just to be a fact sheet. I don't want you to take it literally. The idea is that your recycling and your trash go out the same day, and that we're not going to be going through trash bags, but we'll be hoping to understand who's recycling and how much on the same day. So it's not meant to be my trash got picked up first and my bin was out, or vice versa, Counselor.
No, I appreciate that. Trust me, I mean, I have 2 high school age children that have taken so many classes about recycling that we do tons of recycling in my own household.
Me too.
It's like they, which is great. But at the same sense as when I look at, a fact sheet like that and how are we going to quote unquote encourage mandatory recycling. I wish we could change the word from mandatory, because I think everyone should be encouraged to recycle. But at the same note is, if someone chooses not to recycle, I'm just throw out the example of someone who may own a piece of rental property and their tenants choose not to recycle, then I mean we're going to penalize the owner of that building because the tenants don't recycle and then in turn not pick up their trash.
So we do that with trash. If you have a tenant who doesn't put your trash out in the right size container, or, doesn't follow the rules and requirements with respect to trash, the fine goes to the property owner to try and encourage it. We are finding more property owners are including language in their tenancy and will agreements that, requires, their tenants to comply with the rules, whether it's a recycling rule or a trash rule. With respect to the notion that, geez, are we really requiring people to recycle? Well, if we don't have recycling, keep in mind, we're paying to throw that stuff out, so everybody else is paying for that. You recycle, I recycle. I've got those same kids who, if a piece of paper ends up in the trash, they're yelling and screaming. And the fact of the matter is, if we recycle a lot, we save money and our costs go down, especially now where we have that per ton arrangement. So the folks who don't recycle are frankly driving up some of the costs. And the goal around this program is to help and encourage everyone. I wish it wasn't mandatory. I wish it was strongly encouraged. But those are the words the state is requiring for us to get there. So I want to be clear. The new contracts are not are not built around mandatory recycling. This was an opportunity we had. We applied for the grant. It's very competitive. We got it. As I told you earlier, I had some very strong reservations when I first heard the word mandatory recycling, much along the lines of some of the questions you posed. But in really breaking it down, we control the approach. I don't believe there's a requirement for how long we need to keep mandatory recycling in place, meaning, hey, we can try this for a year, take advantage of the grant, and if people feel like it's an unmitigated disaster, we can repeal the ordinance. I do think there is some value in this approach, and I know that we have a lot of residents who support it, given how supportive they are without the word mandatory by it, And I'm hopeful it's something that people can see their way through to trying, but again, it's not a have to. It's really at the will of the council if we want to take this up and take advantage of the dollars.
No, I don't. I mean, I applaud the effort of the recycling committee and everyone who's worked on this. I mean, as Council Ryan alluded to earlier, we've come a long way in 10 years, and I do believe we should do everything that we can to encourage our residents to recycle. But I mean, I guess the language, first the word mandatory throws me, and then I guess when I look at it, if they don't recycle, what are you not going? You're going to penalize them. You're not going to pick up your trash. How do you control? I mean, the controls in that, and then it comes, okay, we're going to hire someone. We're going to create a position that is going to be designed to encourage that, and then hopefully offset of those savings are going to fund the position. So it's a double-edged sword, so to speak. I mean, I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess the word mandatory scares me. I guess, and you've alluded to it. I wish it was a different word, but at the same time, I don't know. We had this conversation earlier. I think it's a tough one how do you do it without penalizing people, and at the same time as the penalty's already built in? So how do you judge when not to use the penalties? And the only recourse, especially on multi-unit buildings, is to penalize the building owner, whoever he or she may be, whether they live in Salem or don't live in Salem, but the people who live in that building. And I mean, obviously, how long do you have to put language into their lease agreements in order to accomplish that? So it's a tough one.
All right, I'm in line.
I'm also.
All set? Okay. Councilor Terrio?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the mayor and anybody else who can answer this. The number came up in the introduction here that we have a 19% recycling rate here, and what I am wondering to that is, first of all, getting to that next level, what is that next level? How much recycling do we see in towns that are more successful than us? And is 19%, I mean, is that good? Is that decent? Is that horrible? 19%, I don't know what that is relative to, so I'm a little curious about that first.
Well, the goal is 40% for our community, so we're halfway there. I actually don't know how it relates. I don't know, Sharon, if you know how it relates to other places. But I know the goal is 40. Yes.
Okay. And we don't know any other, like, other city rates, for the most part?
Sharon may be able to help us. Sharon Kushida is the solid waste coordinator for DEP.
I've got a listing here, so if you want to shout out a community, or I can give you some. Beverly is currently at 22%, so it's just a little bit better than Salem.
And they do not have mandatory.
They do not have mandatory. Marblehead is at 25%. Swampscott's 22%. Let's look at Peabody. Peabody's 13%. They're really at the lower end. Some of the high performers in Essex County are upwards 35, 40%, but they have probably stricter crash limits than Salem does.
So there are communities that have pay as you throw, and amazingly, when people have to pay per bag, they tend to recycle a little bit more.
Funny how that works.
Right, so I say you're kind of medium, lower medium.
Okay, and then the other things that have come up, and this, these are things that came up in the, as some of this in the issues that I had sent in from my email solicitation to people. Again, a problem that I see potentially in Salem with this is that we have such a high number of non-owner occupied properties and rental multifamilies and rental units. And I'm especially worried about some of the situations where you have an owner in one of the units, say a triple decker, and they're renting out the other 2 units, and now that owner has to be responsible for policing what the tenants themselves are recycling and whether they're doing it right. I see that as a potential sticky point. And then the other thing that I want to point out is, the grant funds the position, but the grant itself is sunsetted, and I know the hope is for the savings to be able to sustain it. But, I guess where that ties to is, so we get to the magic 40%. We get to the magic 40%, and we're saving some money and all. But is that something that do we then still need a person there to be the recycle police, essentially?
So some thoughts I would offer around that issue is, given the fact that we have such a high, a number of rental units, all the more reason to have somebody that we can really target, folks who are new to Salem, the transients who are in and out, because we do have apartments that, rent out, and specifically come up with systems that can help, whether it's here's your new bin, welcome to Salem, this is the mandatory recycling. There are programs that we could develop that we could keep in place well after anybody's here to encourage, remind, enhance recycling amongst newcomers to Salem, particularly people moving in who are new, or folks who are renters who may be moving from one apartment to the next, making sure they have units, access to the right type of recycling unit, things like that. And the second piece is just, we are not looking to keep this position on long term. I'm hoping that we can see some of these type of upfront, easy, low-hanging fruit areas that we can utilize with the recycling coordinator, really target some areas, multiple languages, whether it's new homeowners. After we do some assessment, we don't really even have a solid line of assessment around, where are the sweet spots for us to improve recycling. Ride-alongs within the truck, understanding those data tonnage, what routes are more successful than others when it comes to recyclables, using that information to help us make smart decisions going forward, and hopefully being able to put in place some systemic changes that are helpful and can sustain that rate. This is, we're getting some money from the state to help, and frankly, these aren't tax dollars. This money is generated from, tax credits that some of these operators pay who have emissions. The Covances of the world pay into the state, and they're using it to try and enhance recycling within the communities. So I just want to be clear about that. This is not going to be a position that hangs around forever. We are hopeful that we can make some changes and develop a system that keeps them in place just from a foundational perspective with the staff that we have.
Councilor Torrio? And on this side, I don't even know who was first. I think it was Councilor Malinowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question, actually, first of all, I'm in support of the mandatory recycling. However, like Councilor McCarthy, I'm concerned about the way to recognize or enforce this, and because I've had recent calls from people on Boardman Street just a couple weeks ago, who were complaining that their recycle bins were halfway down the street because of the wind. And they were complaining about the actions of Northside at the time, and I don't believe it was Northside's fault. I believe it was strictly the wind that was doing this. So basically, I feel like many of the councilors, I believe, feel, I put out up to 3 barrels of trash, and I put out up to 3 barrels of recycling myself every week. That being said, when if the trash gets done first, I take those empty barrels and bring them in. If the recycling gets done first, I take those empty containers and bring them in. So the question would be, how, in as much as I'm supporting mandatory recycling, I don't know how a fair method could be determined to do that, other than by the fact that the collectors themselves would be able to see on a weekly basis, oh yeah, this house never puts it out, or yeah, this house always puts it out, these 5 houses do fine, and the next 2 never do anything. I mean, other than that, I mean, I don't know. The other part about this, I mean, that discussion won't resolve that this evening, all right? But the part that I'm a little concerned with here is on the commercial side of this, we're not going to be charging the commercial businesses for recycling, are we?
No.
No? Are they going to be able to recycle free of charge?
Places that we pick up, we allow to recycle free of charge. It
Well,
helps us.
well, no, what I mean by that is some of the commercial businesses right now have to pay their monthly fees for the stuff?
Yes, so any trash, correct me if I'm wrong, any trash that we pick up that we charge for from a business can also recycle, correct?
Okay, and they won't be charged for the recycling?
No, they're not charged.
I just wanted to make sure that was said. Okay, thank you.
So Counselor, just to your point earlier, one of the things that in other communities the recycling coordinator's done is a ride-along with the recycling truck. So it gives them so they're right on board, and they know who's recycling and who's not. They begin to chart some of that by route, by different areas, so you can break it down and help them understand and assess, right, what's happening. Is it one area, one neighborhood, one street, where we can make some improvements.
All right, thank you.
Preety, then Councilor Siegel, and Councilor Carr. Councilor Preety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, getting back to the whole point about the finding of residents that don't comply, is there a way, like most people, I'm not excited about that particular prospect, but I remember when we had adopted the contract of Northside Carting 5 years ago, when we first went through the changes of the 3 barrels, we gave people an opportunity. Once the regulations went out, there was a grace period, for lack of a better word, that gave them an opportunity to kind of essentially come into compliance, change their behavior, stuff like that, before that drop-dead period came about where, yes, there will be penalties after that. Can't we do that in this case where we can impose mandatory recycling and whatever amount of period of time we can talk about what that would be? That way people have an opportunity to make whatever changes we can do before even the whole threat of a fine comes into
100%.
place.
Yeah, that's exactly the way we would hope to be able to accommodate that. If you may recall as well, we had a lot of like a PR and educational component to the 3-bag limit, and it was coming. We see an opportunity to do all of that. And really, again, having a person at your disposal to do that work is very, very helpful. To get the information out, to remind people. In that case, we also had Northside Carting, what was sort of the discretion, as you recall, their folks were. And when they put the hammer down, they really put it down. In this case, that won't be happening. We'll have this coordinator. We'll all be working together, but it's not going to be Northside's job to make sure every recycling bin has something in it. We really see this as a positive opportunity to enhance it and reach out to people. Right now, the Salem Recycling Committee has a door knocker program where they go out and put door knockers on. Many of you may have seen them or may have received them, but it's done by volunteers. Here's another opportunity to perhaps work with the recycling coordinator to get things like this up. We noticed, these things weren't in your bin. Here's an opportunity to recycle these. Did you know, there's a way for you to encourage and increase what you're doing if you're not recycling the right way. So we have a lot of these materials. It's sort of taking it to the next level to make sure they end up in the places where we're seeing an opportunity to improve how we recycle and what we collect in multiple languages, making sure that information is getting out.
I think by giving people kind of like a running start, so to speak, or a grace period, it allows people, as has been talked about earlier, the folks that are on rental properties, to kind of get their folks, their tenants in line, corral them, as opposed to trying to immediately, once this goes in, because you know how it is with people, until something actually goes into place, until it goes into effect and starts hitting them, people aren't going to respond.
Yeah.
And we got all those calls, Julie got them, Dave got them, all the counselors got them, that as soon as the 3-barrel minimum went into effect, the calls were unbelievable. And we got them.
I've wiped it from my memory, Counselor.
Right. It's going to come back again. It's all going to come flooding back. But eventually, once everyone kind of got on board with it, all the calls stopped. I don't get more calls like that. So I just want to make sure that if truly, if we're imposing it because the state requires us to do so in terms of having a mandatory program, that we're doing it in a way that is truly just trying to get people to change their behavior and not trying to penalize people, because people are going to view it as a penalty. And if we can give people that lead time and start getting people to change their behavior long before the fine actually really becomes a reality for people, I think we're going to get a lot more in terms of honey than vinegar for folks to really step up and make the changes.
Yeah, so true. And one thing we don't really talk about a lot, and maybe it's because the disposal contract wasn't separate until now.
1 second.
Technology.
So one of the things we really need to make sure we're encouraging folks to know about is if you recycle more, it's not going in our disposal fees. In the prior contract, it was a lump sum. So whether you recycled a lot or a little, our disposal fees didn't change. We paid one price for collection and pickup. And we did that at the time because we really wanted the stability of knowing what the number was. We didn't have a lot of data on the tonnage, and we didn't feel comfortable necessarily separating it out. They are separate now. So, pound for pound, everything that ends up in your recycling bin is saving us $61.50 per ton right from the get-go. So, concerned taxpayers who are worried about costs and where things are going, they can help us every single day by recycling more, especially with the paper, because not only do we take it out of the waste stream, but then we're actually making money on that because there's a market for it. So there's lots of ways. We've done the perfect pickup. The recycling committee really helped spearhead that, where folks who did a great job, this was part of the whole education about how you could recycle better, got a gift card to someplace to eat, a gift certificate.
North Shore Recycle Fiber put up the money, and we gave them a $50 Amex gift card every week. We did it for a year.
And it was a great way to say, hey, you did a great job, and we tried to publicize it. There's more opportunity to do that. I totally agree with you. We're not looking to come in with the hammer and fine people as much as we're looking to encourage and incentivize and understand why. So we can do some, why, if you're not recycling, why aren't you recycling? I'm going to send my kids over to visit you and hopefully be in a position where people see it as a positive, not a punitive.
Along the same lines, and that's not necessarily something I think we should introduce in the ordinance itself, but maybe as an internal policy, could we come up with something that would allow someone, if they did get a fine, to have it rescinded, if they took certain steps? Much like if you get a parking ticket, you can file an appeal, whatever the case may be, because if it is about behavioral compliance and getting someone, maybe there is some way in which if someone gets a $25 fine, that if they do X, Y, and Z, and we monitor, the change that they undergo, could they have it rescinded?
Yeah, right now those fines would be appealed to district court, I believe, is where they would go. So we could work through a process over there with the clerk very simply. We have a diversion program for if you end up getting a ticket.
Right. I mean, some people may just pay it and it may be nothing to them, and other people will be like, no, I want this to go on my record. I want this fine taken out.
It's a civil penalty, just so
right. Right. But some people are, I've got people who've gotten tickets in the city, parking tickets, and they're like, I haven't got a parking ticket in 20 years, and they're really upset because they think, I've been tagged now as a violator, so.
It could be in addition to Councilor Siegel's defense business.
Right.
So I'm sure we can work through that. And keep in mind, again, Haverhill and Lowell, two communities that are both larger than us, 3 tickets each. I mean, so we really want to use our discretion in the way that is not over reliant on issuing tickets. That is not how we see a recycling program being manifested and successful in Salem, by hitting people over the head with tickets.
Because I would imagine the first time someone gets a ticket, you know who they're going to call.
I have a feeling. I get a lot of those calls.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Councilor Siegel.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, off, I'd like to say I love this program. I think it's a wonderful program for Salem. I've done a little research on it. And just for the people at home, I put the numbers to this. We got a fact sheet which had 4 towns, Reading, Danvers, Haverhill, and Lowell. And basically, just to show what the city can save, is the trash reduction in Lowell was 514 tons. That was the least in the year of 2012. And they saved $31,611 just by recycling on this one. Reading, which only has a population of a little under 25,000, they reduced their trash by 1,514 tons, less saving at our rate of $61.50 per ton, $93,000 for the year. So it's definitely something we should be looking into. I'm definitely for it. I can understand some people being reluctant, especially people that own 3 families and people who rent. I'd like to take Councilor Prevy's suggestion one step further. Well, first I'd ask if we can take it out of the district court, the appeals, because they're not going to be happy if they get a lot of appeals. Second, I think if we started this, let's say hypothetically April 1st, I think if you give the grace period, but a lot of the renters have a lease from said date to said date. This is something a landlord could put in their lease agreements, that the tenants are responsible for any fees and fines. So what I would suggest, and it might be a little complicated, but if somebody gets a ticket, a landlord gets a ticket because his tenant didn't recycle, if that lease started before the mandatory date, I think there should be a grace period. Because I don't think that landlord should be held responsible for what their tenant does if they don't have the opportunity to put it on the tenant. And that's my only suggestion on that. That's it.
All set. Councilor Carr?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to, I guess, the mayor. Where does the 40% target goal that was alluded to earlier, where did that come from?
DEP sets goals for communities in terms of trying to meet their policy demands. Generally, it comes from the state.
So given that we're hovering around the 19, 20%, is it, I guess my question, is it a realistic goal?
Well, we've discussed with the recycling committee, Salem Recycles, with the volunteer organization who are here today, and that's the goal that we would like to see. I don't know how realistic it is, Councilor, to be truthful, but we would certainly like to see double. If you recall, when we went to the new contract, we went from 9% to then 15% to 19%. We stayed at 19%. We think there's a lot more opportunity. We strive for it.
I mean, some of these numbers are based on what the makeup of solid waste is, what municipal solid waste is, that there's enough recyclable material in the average, ton of solid waste that we could meet that goal.
So my concern is, so I have a couple concerns, and I would say that there's certainly probably a saturation point. I don't think that we've reached the saturation point yet, but I'm not really sure what it is. Mayor Driscoll, you alluded to the importance of data assessment and collection earlier, and I agree with the importance of that. I question, though, if the first step of making it mandatory is the right place to start, or if just that, the data assessment and data collection is the first place to start. And that's what I'm struggling with, and it's more of a comment than a question. That's it.
Just one response to that. I hear you. I totally agree, as a matter of fact. Unfortunately, these dollars come with strings. So if we could just bring on board a recycling coordinator and use those grant dollars, I think our preference would be to really do data, do the assessment, really understand it, and then dive into the education, incentive, and targeting places where we think we can make some upgrades. Unfortunately, that's not the way the grant works, and they want us to, we are required to have a component of this being a mandatory area for us to focus on. I think there is a strong amount of discretion within our community about how we roll it out and how we implement it, and so our goal, as I said, is really to minimize ticketing and maximize education and assessment.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to add one more point to what I said about the figures and what we'd be saving. It basically starts off at a set figure. Hypothetically, we do 20,000 tons per trash per year we ship out to Covanta. That's the baseline. Everything that we recycle and we come off that 20,000 is what we'll be saving. And the reason it's so important to start now is because our first year with Covanter, they're accepting the garbage, the tonnage is $61.50 per ton. Every year that's increasing. And in 10 years, that's gonna be up to around $84 per ton. So those numbers could be, pretty big numbers that we'd be saving by doing this and starting now. So that's why I fully support it.
Council Sosnowski?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, the last question I would have here, going with the mayor's comment that we need all of these component pieces in order to qualify for the grant, can we get rid of the requirement that the barrels be right next to the other barrels as one of the requirements? Can we get rid of that particular paragraph?
So I think that fact sheet was just something that Dave put together to give you an idea how it would work. So I don't want us to read that too literally. The way that the program will be looking is we'll be looking at recycling bins, not ripping open trash. I think that was the point of the comment.
I agreed with your comment that we didn't want to be punitive.
Right.
We wanted to be informative and educate the public as to what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
That being said, I totally agree with that, all right? I just want to make sure that we can, until a very friendly, as it was referred to, a sugar approach versus the vinegar approach, until we find that particular approach, all right, I really don't want that to be part of what we adopt this evening.
Are you talking about the ordinance, Council, or the fact sheet?
It's in the fact sheet, Pat, so if we...
I know, so the fact sheet was just given to you for an example purpose, to help you understand and hopefully answer questions. The ordinance,
will that be part of what's before us?
all you're voting on would be the actual language of the ordinance. It's in the ordinance too, that's telling me.
Well, it says it shall be accompanied by a properly marked recycling separate.
So the idea is that you're gonna have recycling bin, some sort of recycling bin.
So I guess, Mr. President, so I guess the question would be, on the punitive part of the actual order, are we gonna, does that have to be written right now, have to be agreed upon this evening?
Go
Can I make a suggestion? Maybe what we do is, because this draft ordinance was approved by the DEP staff, correct? We sent this, yeah. And I guess my suggestion would be maybe there's an accompanying order with respect to how the policy and the hearings and the grace period and all those things that we do internally, that there be a city council order.
Yeah.
That covers those.
So if you adopted the ordinance, we'd almost have regulations that govern how we actually implemented the rules, so that you would know that we're not from Jump Street going to be tackling things that we've talked about here, and we certainly all want to strive for. But we'll put some definition towards, okay, what an implementation plan might look like.
And what weather constraints there might be and things like that.
Yeah, I mean,
That would be satisfactory if that was understood among everybody in this room here, because that would be great.
so the mechanics of that might look like adoption of the ordinance, subject to final review of an implementation plan that we submit to you that covers some of the things we've talked about, and I think we all strive for, which would be a friendlier way of addressing this word mandatory.
Trying to strongly encourage them to comply.
Yeah.
Right. Understood. Thank you very much.
We've come a long way in 10 years in recycling. It's the next logical step, mandatory. If we think 10 years down the line, 10 years from now, 2023, 33, where will we be? I think we will be at that 40% or more mark. That will be going beyond those expectations. I think we've had our grace period. Our 10 years has been our grace period. We've had 10 years. I think the word mandatory, people will get used to that word mandatory, and I think in 10 years from now, we'll all be doing it. I think it's just a fact of life. In 10 years from now, we'll think nothing of, we'll be reaping the bounds and benefits of it in 10 years from now. Thank you.
Sir, Ariel.
Thank you, through you, Mr. President. I think, although, as I've said, I do have some reservations, I think if we put the proper implementation plan into place before this is adopted or as part of the adoption of it, if we do that, I could support doing this if we have the right precautions in place. I'm just, again, like many of my colleagues have expressed, I have my concerns about potential punitive action. I understand that that's not our intent, but intentions do have a way of going awry on occasion. So let's let's have something, you know, or kind of a stated policy that's out there as part of this before we actually would adopt, and let's, at the same time, also, you know, take the time to really introduce Salem to the concept and ease them into it, much the way they did with the previous trash changes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the mayor or Julie. Like I said earlier, I don't have a problem with recycling. I think it's great, and the word mandatory scares me, but, you know, everything that's been said tonight, I think that some of the things that were brought up, I think, I mean, I support it. But just going back to the question of the position, I know we're talking about hiring somebody as an employee. Is there any chance we can hire him as a contractor? I mean, you've stated that we want to go short-term, and it's not going to be tax, quote-unquote, tax dollars, because I'm assuming similar to the way the power plants pay into the Reggie fund, and we use this, the trash hauls are paying into some fund, and so this position's being funded through that. I mean, if the intent is to keep the position short-term, do we want to make them an employee, or do we want to make them a contractor?
Yeah, we can look at it, Counselor. Yeah, definitely something for us to whether, I mean, they give us a lump sum of money, so, you know, I think that we want to try and be judicious and not put ourselves in the barrel of owning more of this after the person's gone. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Councilor Pete?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, a question again of the mayor about this mandatory recycling. I'm reading a document that the city engineer sent you, Mayor, and I'm concerned about a couple of words he uses. This coordinator that you just referred to, this municipal recycling coordinator, will continue to educate Salem residents on the do's and don'ts of recycling. That's on this page that says fact sheet mandatory recycling.
Yep.
All right, and then I'm really concerned about the last paragraph that says this person will follow to hire a person dedicated to auditing the routes. In other words, that means he follows the trucks?
Right along, right with
All right.
them, right?
Developing a baseline of recycling practices. And then what really bothers me, and provide an aggressive educational program to all residents. In other words, does that mean hanging this door tag on and say we're not going to pick up it next week?
It could mean things like that, or maybe we do a mailing if there's one route where we see a lot of non-compliance. These are meant to be suggestions, so I think as we get into this, our hope would be that we can target areas where we think there's room for improvement in a way, and find out why. Maybe it's surveys, Counselor. You know, we noticed you didn't have your bin out. Is there a reason?
So that's the aggressive part of this.
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm troubled by.
Aggressive educational program?
Yes.
You had a semester at Harvard Law School, right?
Yes.
Was that an aggressive educational program, would you say, Counselor? Okay, we can be non-aggressive on education, and if you prefer, we can be passive-aggressive.
Win some, you lose some, right?
Yep, Counselor, true.
All set? Any further questions?
Move the question.
Councilor Salem?
I'm not making any motion.
Refer it out of committee to the full council with a favorable recommendation with the understanding that we are going to be aggressively educating people while at the same time we will be lenient in our introduction of the program.
Second.
Councilor Sosnowski's recommendation, Councilor, seconded by Councilor Fury.
Discussion?
Discussion.
Well, as part of that too, I know the mayor and the city solicitor had suggested that we can vote this out pending also receipt of regulations and implementation guidelines that are going to be put forward, so the council can adopt that as well. Just so everyone's clear publicly as well as the council that it's part of this program. We're just not going to drop the hammer on people, but there's going to be a ramping up and obviously a kinder, friendlier recycling and program.
So the mechanics of that would look like adoption of the ordinance subject to final approval of an implementation plan to be submitted by the council. So that means if you adopted it, we're not planning on implementing it tomorrow. We can obviously get you that plan in advance.
Yep. Take that as part of the recommendation. Seconded by Councilor Fury. Further comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Councilor
Opposed.
O'Keefe?
Wish be accord, opposed.
Councilor O'Keefe? Recorded as opposed. Okay. Councilor O'Keefe?
Move for adjournment.
Councilor O'Keefe moves for adjournment. All those in favor? Opposed?